After saying that, Grace waved her hand and urged, "Okay, Sophia will be here for dinner soon. You'd better leave quickly." As Evelyn was leaving, she happened to run into Ethan and Sophia coming together. So, were Ethan and Sophia already starting to openly come and go together now? Seeing Evelyn, Ethan subconsciously distanced himself from Sophia a bit and then excitedly walked towards Evelyn. "Evelyn, you're back. Mom invited Sophia to have dinner at home today." "Yes, Sister Evelyn, why don't you stay for dinner together today?" Sophia said in a cutesy voice, clearly sounding like a hostess. Sophia spoke in a cutesy voice, clearly sounding like a hostess. "No thanks. I just sent Julian home. I still have things to do, so I'll leave first. Let me know when it's convenient for you. I'll wait for you at the Civil Affairs Bureau." After saying that, Evelyn ignored both Ethan and Sophia and turned around to leave directly, knowing clearly that all the conflicts were caused by Sophia, yet still unwilling to keep a distance from her. In that case, why bother to pretend to be affectionate with the utmost efforts of Grace, Evelyn's former mother-in-law? Ethan quickly agreed to the divorce. The process of obtaining the divorce certificate was surprisingly smooth. Ethan hesitated several times, as if he wanted to speak, but Evelyn pretended not to see him as she was leaving. Ethan couldn't help but stop Evelyn. "Evelyn, I'll wait for you. I still like you. If you regret it, come back to me. This will always be your home." Evelyn paused for a moment but didn't turn around and continued walking forward. Ethan also knew that Evelyn had long lost her home. Was this one of the reasons why Ethan was so unscrupulous? Ethan's family was his home, but it had never been Evelyn's. In Ethan's family, Evelyn was treated more like a guest who could be dismissed casually. They were polite and courteous to anyone except Evelyn. Instead, they looked down on Evelyn, the one they believed had seduced their son into disobedience. They could rummage through Evelyn's mobile phone and bag without asking for permission. Whenever Evelyn made a phone call, Grace would monitor it closely. Evelyn had no privacy at all. What remained for Evelyn was only indifference and sarcasm. Evelyn carefully tried to please everyone except for Ethan. Evelyn had no one to rely on. However, over time, Evelyn discovered that even Ethan himself actually looked down on her in his heart. Ethan attended various banquets but seldom took Evelyn with him. Evelyn was always left at home to take care of the children. Outsiders only knew that Ethan had a wife, but they had never seen Evelyn. Evelyn had never integrated into Ethan's circle of friends. For the sake of Ethan's exclusive preference for her, Evelyn once deceived herself and pretended not to see these things. However, the issues had always existed. The affection that made Evelyn fall for Ethan gradually dissipated over the years until there was hardly anything left. As a result, Evelyn also lost the reason to keep persisting. The beginning of their relationship had already doomed the ending of separation. Before Evelyn decided to leave Beijing, she went to Ethan's family's place, planning to see Julian. However, to her surprise, Grace said that Julian didn't want to see her. Through the door, Evelyn could hear the laughter of Julian playing with Sophia. It seemed that nothing had changed just because Evelyn left. After confirming that Ethan was happy, Evelyn ignored the bitterness in her heart and turned around to leave. That was okay too. It was time for Evelyn to live her own life. Evelyn returned to Nanair instead of contacting her parents, whom she hadn't seen for a long time. Evelyn rented an apartment in the urban area and found a job as a salesperson in a clothing store. When the clothing store wasn't busy, Evelyn would huddle in a corner and read books on clothing design. Since Evelyn was a child, she had been interested in clothing matching and always fantasized that she could design unique clothes by herself. When Evelyn was in high school, she thought that if she could go to college, she would definitely apply for the major of clothing design. Unfortunately, it finally didn't work out, despite her concerns. After saving some money, Evelyn had time to pursue these interests. She was admitted to the clothing design major of a part-time Unity University and used her free time to learn relevant knowledge. Every morning, when I opened my eyes, I knew clearly what I should do that day. There was a special sense of satisfaction in my heart. I wouldn't be as confused and depressed as before. Although it was a bit hard, it was fulfilling working, making money, and going to school. I lived the life I had been looking forward to, except for the fixed 2 phone calls to Julian every month. I seldom thought about the past or Ethan anymore. More and more, the person who used to be as important as life in my heart gradually faded away in my life like this. It turned out that no one was indispensable to anyone. It turned out that Evelyn could live a better life without Ethan. When Ethan's call came again, it was half a year later. On the phone, Ethan told Evelyn guiltily that Julian had been admitted to the intensive care unit. The doctor said that Julian's condition was very dangerous and hoped that Evelyn could come to see Julian. It was urgent, so Evelyn bought the nearest flight ticket as quickly as possible and flew to Beijing. When Evelyn arrived, Grace was also there. Grace was unusually kind, pouring Evelyn water and bringing her fruits, while urging Evelyn to rest early. After seeing Julian, Grace would stay to keep watch at night. However, Evelyn felt something was wrong. Grace didn't seem to want Evelyn to stay and watch over Julian. Additionally, Ethan's strange attitude on the phone hinted that Julian's admission to the intensive care unit this time might not have been an accident. Evelyn pressed Ethan for answers. Ethan stammered as he explained that when he got home that day, he had happened to see Sophia covering Julian's mouth. Sophia claimed that she was playing games with Julian at that time and was so careless that she didn't notice that Julian wasn't feeling well. When Evelyn discovered that Julian couldn't open his eyes anymore, Evelyn hurriedly sent Julian to the hospital. "I'm sorry. I didn't take good care of him," Evelyn said, clenching her fists tightly, with her fingernails digging into her palms. Before Evelyn could barely calm herself down, Evelyn asked, "So Ethan, you didn't do anything to Sophia, did you?" Ethan replied, "Julian has been in the intensive care unit since yesterday until now." Evelyn roared, her voice choked with sobs as she confronted Ethan. "Julian is also your son, he's the son that both of you have raised since he was a baby. Are you going to abandon Julian for Sophia too?" "I'm sorry. I didn't mean that, Ethan. If anything happens to Julian, I'll make Sophia's whole family pay with their lives." Evelyn turned her back on Ethan and ignored him, then stayed outside the ward no matter what. Grace, Evelyn's former mother-in-law, asserted that Evelyn wouldn't leave the ward for a single step. When Evelyn needed to use the toilet, she went to the public toilet opposite the ward. When Evelyn needed to buy food, she paid someone to help her. Evelyn didn't trust any of them anymore, obviously. Grace, Evelyn's former mother-in-law, also knew everything, but Grace tried to help the murderer, Sophia, hide the truth. In Grace's eyes, the wealthy and powerful Sophia was more important than her grandson, Julian. 2 days later, Julian finally woke up. When he saw Evelyn, he hugged her and burst into tears. Mom, Aunt Sophia was trying to kill me. Julian exclaimed. Sophia was trying to kill me. The little boy continued to sob, but she didn't get me my medicine. She even covered my mouth with a pillow and said it would be better if I died. She said it was all because of me that Ethan didn't want to be with her. She said that if I died, Ethan would notice her. Julian's tears flowed as he shared, I also heard Grandma say that she didn't want me anymore and that you should take me away. Let Sophia and Ethan have another healthy baby. Grandma didn't care when I was sick either. Julian cried out, Mom, I miss you so much. Take me away. In this family, only you really care about me. They don't want me, and I don't want Dad or Grandma either. Julian, what nonsense are you talking about? Sophia was clearly just too involved in playing games with you and didn't notice you weren't feeling well. How can you say she did it on purpose? You're being too naughty, Evelyn replied. Grace rushed over and heard Julian's words. Her face instantly turned gloomy. Julian immediately shrank back reflexively at that moment. Evelyn's heart ached. What kind of life had the lively and cheerful Julian lived in the past 6 months that he would have a conditioned reflex of fear towards his own grandmother, Grace? Evelyn shouldn't have ignored Julian just because he said he was doing well on the phone. Didn't Grace hear what Julian said? Evelyn looked at Grace and repeated coldly, Sophia took Julian's medicine away when he had an attack and covered his mouth with a pillow. Is she joking with Julian's life? Grace responded dismissively, you anyway, Sophia didn't do it on purpose. Since Grace believed that Ethan and Evelyn did not take good care of Julian, Grace suggested that Evelyn could take Julian away from that point forward. Sophia, in her generosity, was willing to offer Evelyn 1 million yuan, claiming that this amount would be sufficient for Evelyn to provide Julian with a good life in a small county. So, is this 1 million yuan a bribe to ensure that I won't pursue Sophia's crime of attempted murder? Evelyn inquired. Evelyn looked at the elegant and attractive woman opposite her and suddenly laughed. You may not like Sophia as a daughter-in-law, but you certainly seem to appreciate her family. Grace misjudged Evelyn. Grace used to think that Evelyn was not close to her because of a cold nature, but it turned out that Evelyn could also be very enthusiastic. Evelyn could rush towards the powerful Sophia family like a dog and even disregard the life of her own grandson. Evelyn, shut up. Do you still have any manners or upbringing? Grace exclaimed. I shouldn't have agreed to let Ethan be with you in the first place. As expected, children born in the countryside are so vulgar and don't resemble our Ethan family at all. Grace had kindly advised Evelyn to value harmony, but Evelyn had not listened. Grace continued, then just go ahead and make trouble. Do you think you, a person from the countryside, can compete with the Sophia family? What witnesses or evidence do you have who can prove it? Do you think others will listen to you just because you say a few words? After completely falling out, Grace showed her true colors. Whether it was similar or not didn't matter. Evelyn was determined to fight for Julian's custody, and she was also determined to sue Sophia, the murderer. Grace, the situation will be addressed. Fortunately, Evelyn had been prepared and recorded the conversation in advance with the Sophia family, safeguarding evidence against Sophia. Perhaps the process of collecting evidence would prove challenging, but Evelyn would never relent in pursuing justice against the individual who nearly took her son's life. To Evelyn's surprise, Ethan even stepped forward to testify. When Ethan arrived, he appeared somewhat weary, and there were 2 distinct palm prints on his face, likely left by Grace. Upon seeing the astonishment in Evelyn's eyes, Ethan offered a bitter smile. Julian is also my child. Ethan admitted that he failed to take good care of Julian and allowed his son to suffer. He understood that coming forward to testify was his responsibility. Ethan expressed disbelief at Sophia's viciousness, recalling how she had always seemed innocent and lovely during their childhood. He realized that he had taken her behavior for granted, which led to a growing estrangement from Evelyn and nearly caused harm to Julian. Regret filled Ethan's eyes as he spoke these words. However, Evelyn did not want to reassure him that it didn't matter. How could it really not matter? A decade of cold treatment and Julian's near-death experience weighed heavily on her heart. So, in the end, Evelyn just said, "Ethan, thank you for coming forward to testify. Being strangers might be the best ending for both of them." Despite the various efforts made by the Sophia family with conclusive evidence, Sophia was still sentenced to 7 years in prison because of Ethan's testimony. The Sophia family and the Ethan family completely broke off relations. Grace's wish to curry favor with the Sophia family completely fell through. Ethan's father's small company also encountered a large number of attacks in a short period of time. In the end, Grace had to announce that she cut off relations with Ethan to barely save the crumbling company. However, after this incident, the company was severely weakened, and its scale shrank 10 times. Ethan's father and Grace blamed each other. Grace's former elegance completely disappeared. Grace cursed Ethan all day long, gradually wearing out Ethan's little remaining guilt. After losing wealth and status, the seemingly harmonious family of 3 had all kinds of conflicts, but these had nothing to do with Evelyn anymore. Evelyn took Julian back to Non-Air and lived a peaceful and happy life. Holding happiness in one's own hands is the most reassuring thing. Ethan's side story. Ethan did not understand how he and Evelyn ended up getting divorced. Ethan loved Evelyn, there was no doubt about that. Ethan never thought of being with anyone else except her. But Ethan did not know when it started. There were more and more complaints and quarrels in their relationship, and most of them were because of Sophia. Evelyn complained that Ethan should not be too close to Sophia and always gave Ethan the cold shoulder because of that. At first, Ethan thought it was just a little sign of jealousy between 2 people, but over time, he just felt tired. To Ethan, Sophia was just the little neighbor girl who needed to be taken care of when they were young. Ethan just took care of her out of habit. If Ethan liked Sophia, he would have been with her long ago. But Evelyn didn't understand all this. Evelyn was always nitpicking, even when Grace invited Sophia to their home as a guest. Evelyn would give Grace and Sophia the cold shoulder. Ethan was really tired after working all day and coming home. He still had to coordinate the relationship between Evelyn and Grace, time and time again. When Ethan saw Grace sitting on the sofa wiping her tears, the anger in Ethan's heart burned fiercely. Ethan had a big quarrel with Evelyn and endured a cold war for several days. In the end, Evelyn took the initiative to smooth things over. Similar situations happened too many times for Ethan to remember clearly. Later, the frequency of their quarrels increased, and Ethan became more and more impatient with Evelyn. Looking at Evelyn's hysterical appearance each time, Ethan couldn't even recall what she was like when they first met. Ethan started to avoid Evelyn, reduced the time he spent at home, and ignored Evelyn's sad face. Ethan didn't notice Evelyn's increasingly dim eyes. Ethan knew that Grace had always wanted to match him and Sophia together, but he didn't expect that Grace would do such a thing and actually help the drunk Sophia into his room. At the moment when Evelyn calmly woke Ethan up, his heart was filled with panic. Ethan would rather Evelyn had made a big scene than be so calm.